figured I'd stream like my process for doing some face animation today because I came up with my own like weird little system for it. So thought I'd talk about it. And I'm sure I'll have to explain this multiple times because there's nobody here right now, but there'll probably be some people in a bit. But basically, what I've been doing is I've been using Unity Timeline to like queue up the timing for things because you can throw in the audio as Unity native audio objects, audio clips, and see the waveform. But I don't use native Unity audio in my project. I use Fmod. So how, as I explained last time, you can put Fmod clips into Unity Timeline, but it doesn't show you the waveform. And additionally, I haven't yet found a graceful way to have the update rate of Unity's timeline driven by Fmod's DSP clock. There's nobody watching right now, so nobody's there to ask me what the fuck that means. That's great. But if anybody watches the VOD and wants to know what that means, you should just ask me. But anyway, basically, Fmod's update rate is not tied to Unity's audio update rate. I forgot what I was talking about. Something about how I need to sync the face animation to Fmod, basically. However, Unity's native timeline is a really useful tool for being able to sync it up because it lets me do it without being like at runtime. And so, fuck. I'm glad nobody's watching. This is like a rambling digression. I didn't plan this out at all. But anyhow, what I've got going on here is basically I'm going to time it to the Unity audio clips, and then before, like at some point before I ship, I'm actually going to switch everything over to be only Fmod, but the timing's going to be, correct. And if anything needs to be fired off in the middle of the line, put in a Fmod timeline marker. Oops, I did not mean to do that. But being able to see the waveform here is just really, really handy. It helps me save a lot of time. So my system for animation, face animation in particular, is a bit unique because I don't use keyframe animation mostly for my face animation. Instead, gosh, where do I even begin? I don't even, apparently there's one other person watching. I have no idea how much they know about Unity. But in Unity, most animation is keyframe animation, where you've got these things, and they basically just say, this many, oh, nobody can see my cursor. I need to enable my cursor. There we go. You've got these, well, these are the keyframes, so they say like what rotation each bone ought to be in or whatever, and you can put blend shapes into the keyframe animation. So, this many seconds in, do that. I don't like to do that with face animation for a number of reasons. One, each animation clip has a file size, and they can increase a file size rather quickly, particularly if the game has hours of scenes, and this game is nothing but cutscene, because it's a kinetic novel, aka it's a radio play with graphics. So instead, what I've done is I've made this type of object, scriptable object, and you can see this is what it looks like. Now I'm going to explain what the hell that actually does. So these characters, they're shit. I don't even know how much anybody watching knows about anything, so I don't know how much I have to explain, but these characters are made out of skinned meshes. They're meshes that can have deformations. And by deformations, I mean you can make them bend and stuff. That's how characters move in video games. So actually, I've explained it in another stream. I've put all these shapes in these characters so they can basically deform their faces to create the facial expressions. You see that going on there. And that could be a whole. There's a lot to say about just creating that because it takes a bit of artistry to like make those look good. So basically what I've got is I've like pre-made a bunch of configurations of these shapes to be different facial expressions. And I'm just keeping them all in this scriptable object so it's not too sophisticated. So I've just got a list of all the shapes, and I say like, well, to make this expression, it should be this value. Usually blend shapes are done as a value of 0 to 100, although they can be higher or lower. Yeah, just do that. And then the actual animation to go between these expressions is done mathematically, like with easing. Shit, I don't know how much anyone knows about anything. I don't know if I need to explain about easing. So if anybody's in chat and I say something y'all don't know what I'm talking about, you just ask me to explain it. But I can get a lot of mileage out of basically blending between these preset states that don't have any keyframes by using different like easing functions. And so I say easing function, that sounds like I'm talking about some kind of built-in API. And there exist APIs that have easing functions built in, but I'm basically referring sort of in a more abstract sense. You can kind of see here, if I've got one expression, let's say we're working with normalized time, so 0 to 1 of seconds, let's say, and I meant, one expression at 0 seconds, and I want to get to the other expression at 1 second, or when 1 second has elapsed, let's say. How far along in that blend am I? And if you just go linearly from one to the other, it just looks bad, I think, because things in real life don't move like that. So, like, this is a very basic in-out curve. It's one of Unity's defaults. So it's like start blending slowly at first, and then go get a bit faster near the end. This is actually not my favorite blend. These two I've put in. These are not default blends. These are custom by me. But I use them a lot. And you see here in this blend, so this is one. I don't know how well it shows up on stream. But in this normalized, oh, shit, now I need to explain what normalized means. Hi! Sorry, I'm bad at explaining things. I didn't plan what I was going to say ahead of time. I was just going to work and explain what the hell I'm doing. I just noticed chat. I don't know if y'all have been waiting for me to see chat for a while. What is a video game? Nobody knows. The orange, nobody knows. Maybe we'll find out someday. But for now, nobody knows. Oh, yeah, and hi, Mike VA91. I don't know if you have another handle that I know you under, better tell me, because I don't recognize your handle. But hi, I'm happy to see you anyway. Oh, yeah, I was talking about easing. I was talking about my favorite easing curve. That's how much of a nerd I has when, you have a favorite easing curve. You'll see my favorite easing curves. Fuck, I'm so sorry. I'll wake up. I had a coffee. Oh, hi! Good of you to join us. So if I say normalized, I'm not talking about like, clap, normalize some issue. I mean, proportionally putting something between like 0 and 1. So it's like, you can think about it like a percentage or ratio if you're not a programming person. So you'll notice with this, the highest peak goes above 1. It goes above the maximum, not maximum, the destination, let's say. One is the destination that we want to reach. So this actually goes above where we want to go as it travels along the blend and then goes back to the destination. So it overshoots. I like this curve a lot because it, for whatever reason, it just parses as a bit more real. So I suppose I think a lot of animators do this for various things. You can't apply it to everything. but you can think of if you've ever seen a cartoon with a character who's running really fast and like when they stop, their like body leans forward a bit and then snaps back before they fully stop. It's the same idea. But since it can be expressed mathematically as this kind of curve, you don't need to have keyframes, so you can keep your file size like much, much lower if you really lean heavily on blending like this rather than using keyframes like this. And that makes it ideal for face animation to go between these different expressions in a way that doesn't work so well with like bone animation, because like if somebody's limbs are like snapping like that all the time, it looks really fucked up and freaky and weird. But going from these like face expressions, I think because it's nothing like rotating, it works. Anyway, so that's how I do things. That's how I do things in Red Star 2. I created this system originally for Red Star. So it allows me to have a fuckload of different facial expressions while keeping my file size down. And it gives me a lot of, because it's just going between these preset states, not bothering with Unity's mechanism system or bothering with keyframes, it's very easy for me to fire off these animation transitions from code, from like Fmod callback markers, from all kinds of things. And I think the results are pretty good because I can usually get some pretty fluid results, even though the system itself is like not super sophisticated because it's basically just a list of numbers between 0 and 100. So I've got these scriptable objects set up. So yeah, the main thing, I'm not even using these easing curves in this project. I use them in Red Star, but I ended up simplifying my system a bit for the Cherry Orchard. So you might be wondering what this does. This has 0 function in the actual game itself, and actually I've got it in if Unity engine block and code. So like if I built the game, this part would not be built into the actual game. This just exists so I can drag an image in so I can see what the hell this is if I actually like apply it to a character. So this system, like people have asked, like, are you going to put that on the asset store or whatever? The thing about my system is it relies on all of the characters having blend shapes with the same names. So that is up to me to open up Blender. You know, when I'm creating like these characters or their face animation in Blender to make sure that I create all these shapes that behave relatively the same from character to character and name them all the same things. Because the matching for the blend shape is done by string name. And I always get a little like queasy about relying on string names for anything, but that's like just how it is with blend shapes. That's how they work, and that's how they would work in any engine. Meshes are really fucking interesting. I don't know too much about it, but there's like a lot of interesting like data coded into meshes. I should like probably talk to a tech artist sometime about the nitty-gritty details, especially because there's like different ways of like generating an FBX file. So like sometimes they're binary and sometimes they're not, and they can cause interesting version control hiccups, but that's a ramble for another time. So one thing I've got set up in my system, I operate under the assumption that I've only got one instance of each character at any given time. This is not true in Red Star. I can't lean on that for Red Star because Red Star is a much more complicated project. But for this, I'm going to think, okay, so we've got Lubov, we've got Lepakin, we've got Varya. I'm only ever going to have one Lubov, Lepakin, and Varya. And so that lets me be really lazy and set up these buttons so I can preview these expressions. So I can be like, okay, I want to see what it looks like if I have Lubov with that. So, oops, I forgot. I need to make it ignore. These are obviously like Frankenstein together characters from Red Star. So actually what just happened is another thing about my system is I have it set to go through all the shapes listed and set it to the value stated. And if the any other shapes that are found, their value set to 0 unless they're on the ignore list. So this is just a I worked several hours, but I need to do more work and I'm not 100% satisfied with the model. The body of Lubov, I actually made myself. It's my own model work, but the face is the head's Valentina from Red Star with a blend shape to make her look old. And so that got set to 0 just now. because that was a shape that was not listed in that preset. And so the way I've got it set up is to set it to 0. But that's not terribly difficult to fix because I actually, that's why I've got this ignore thing here. So all I have to do is just stick another, well, if I put the name of the blend shape there, then that'll get ignored from now on. Or if I wanted to be bad, I could just go into the code and like hard code an edge case, but I don't feel like doing that. Anyway, that was just for the preview because I actually have, when these are applied in the game, they don't go through that because as I mentioned, this part isn't even built with the game. Oh, that was a really long-winded explanation. I apologize for that. So let's get to it now that I've explained my systems. And yeah, just to say like, so yeah, this image does fuck all, but it like just saves so much time to just go through these and be like, oh yeah, what does that one do again? Because you see I've got names for these. But like, so I try to give them reasonably meaningful names. So I know what the hell any of these are, but it's like smugged out raise. Like, what the fuck is even that? I don't, yeah. So got these. I'll also make another comment. Well, I'm talking about like how I made these. So yeah, these are all like just things I Frankenstein together from the Red Star models because I'm making this on a shoestring. Like the only money I've spent on this so far has been for the voice acting. So that was a few $100s, but past that, I'm not spending any money on this whatsoever because this is supposed to be a quick project, like to help me like get over some burnout from Red Star. So yeah, Varia is made out of Joanna and Natasha with texture recolor. Lopakin is pretty obviously Valentine with the texture recolored and the hair of Nikolaev. Lubov is Valentina's head with a body and a texture that I made all on my own. Except the texture kind of sucks. I need to work on it some more. We can't see Trofimov. Trofimov's actually made out of 4 different characters. I like how he turned out because he doesn't look so obviously like another character that already exists. So most of these characters' faces are derived either from Valentina and Valentine. So we've got, Lubov and Lopakin who are Valentine derived, not deprived. And we've got Varia and Trofimov whose faces are ultimately both derived from Joanna. Like Trofimov, male character's face comes from Joanna, believe it or not. And so the characters' blend shapes I set up, differently per character so that they could make the same, like I could apply the same preset, but the way they do the expression is different because they're, different people. But it means I kind of like often have to create variant expression presets per character because something that looks like a certain like emotion with one set of like on one face type doesn't quite like look the same, looks subtly different on the different face type. And a lot of these actually come from Red Star, which was very convenient because I didn't have to like invent a whole bunch of new presets for this project. I was able to port over a lot of them, be lazy. But I've got these 2 different folders. So the ones prefixed I are Joanna derived, and the ones prefixed V are Valentine and Valentina derived. I say Valentina because actually Valentine's face, as it is in Red Star, I made it, although it was originally made by Valentina Haas, the artist, but I ended up discarding the most recent one that she worked on because I had forgotten to tell her some specs I needed. But they're all ultimately derived from Valentina's face, including, so Valentine, the male character, his face comes from Valentina, more or less. So we've got V-type and I-type expressions. Oh boy. So finally, let's get to it. Okay. So I forgot if I explained, but basically what I'm doing is I can see the waveform and the timeline with Unity's native audio, but I use Fmod, so I'm going to time it to the Unity audio, and then later I'm going to replace all this with Fmod and tie up the callback markers there. But first, we just need to have some fucking expressions laid down. So the situation. We have the situation. Notably, this is not the final animation. I've just got these characters set up in front of the camera like this so I can fucking see their faces. So this character, this story takes place in 1904. Um, this character is Lubov. She's an old lady. She's a noble. She was wealthy, but she's fallen on hard times. And she has been living in Paris for the last 5 years, but she is returned to her estate to settle her debts because I think her estate's being repoed because she can't pay the mortgage. And it's not like a modern sense of the mortgage. Like she needed a mortgage to buy the estate because it's been in her family for generations. I think it's like she needed like a loan type of thing. I don't know. Money and shit is boring. So she's come back after 5 years, and this guy is Lepakin. He was a peasant, and his family. So in Russia, they actually had serfs legally until the 1860s, and serfs in Russia were basically kind of like slaves in the United States, except they had ever so slightly more legal protections in theory. And I was going to say they couldn't be sold because that was typical of most European serf situations, but I did some reading on it, and in Russia you could sell serfs, which is pretty fucked up. But anyway, I believe, although I'm not a scholar, that it wasn't quite as brutal as American chattel slavery, but it was pretty gnarly. So his family was been owned by her family for generations, but the emancipation happened before he was born. And he was born poor, but somehow, they never say how, in the last 5 years he got rich. I don't know, he became a merchant and somehow got fabulously wealthy. But he's a friend of the family, and she hasn't seen him since he was poor. So that's the scene I'm about to look at. Oh boy. So let's just listen to this first line here, and then we'll decide what kind of fucking expression to throw on him.
I've got to go off to Kharkov on the 5 o'clock train. I'm so sorry.
Uh-oh. I've got to fix the audio on whatchamacallit. There we go. That should do it. And don't mind the animations here, because again, the body animation I've not even done yet.
I've got to go off to Kharkov on the 5 o'clock train. I'm so sorry. I really wish I could stay and catch up. Well, you're looking great as always.
Is that really you, Hermes?
Oh, it doesn't like that.
You like the waistcoat? But how about the shoes?
Uh-oh, Unity is not happy about that. Okay, so basics. So we've got this character. He wants really badly to impress her, because the thing about this character is like he wants to like join the upper classes. He's got like an inferiority complex about having been born poor. So the first thing I'm gonna do is just like, okay, let's just find something to slap on here real quick. I've lost my place. So it's kind of funny to compare like 3D animation to 2D animation and like the process, because I feel like drawings always look way better in their like work in progress state, but any kind of 3D animation always looks like total crap until it's actually done. So the first thing I'm gonna do, because I often like do make custom per line expression presets, but first thing is I'm just gonna find something that like I probably have already made that probably works maybe. So even tying back to what I was talking about the other day when picking takes of like, what is the story I'm trying to tell, and can I find something that maybe communicates that? So yeah, he seems to be a bit nervous. So fortunately, since I have all this shit made for Red Star, I was like, let's find something where maybe he looks a little nervous or something. Fortunately, I've got all these screenshots I already made. Yeah, that'll do it. Fuck. Why not? Just gonna drag that into timeline. Unity timeline. Audio scrubbing. That's so fun. I could just lose time. Anywho. So yeah, heck yeah. I mean, that's the way. That's a smart way to do it. So I have a feeling that's not quite the feeling I really want for this line, but the important thing I think first is just have a pass where it's like kind of okay, because it's always easier to tweak things than to like start looking at a blank page. So whatever, that's good enough for now for him being nervous and wanting to impress her. And then she's got.
Is that really you, Hermes?
So going back to kind of what we were discussing the other day about like how one would pick takes. It's sort of when she says that, what does she mean? Why is she saying that? Because she knows it's him. Like she's not in disbelief of who this person is. So why would somebody say that? It's another way of saying like, oh, you've changed a lot. So it's, in other words, her saying like, wow, you got rich. Wow, you're wearing fancy clothes now. And how does she feel about that? Well, he's a friend of the family, and he's been courting her daughter for a long time. And we see later, like, she's quite fond of him. So I think she should be pretty happy for him that he's, like, made it. So since she's a Valentina-derived character, I'm going to look through, the Valentine-derived expression presets of, like, let's find one where I'm probably going to be looking for an expression which has some raised brows and maybe a smile. And if I can't find one, then I can explain how I make a new one. Let's see. Oop, I want to get my inspector over here. So we can just kind of, I want to put my ignore list so I can preview this on her. Yeah, that'll work. What's that one? I called that one interested. Yeah, how I come up with the names sometimes is kind of arbitrary because I mean, you have to name it something. And it's a very bad idea to like name things with numbers at the end because you're not going to remember what any. I've done it a few times, but yeah, you're not going to remember what anything you put a number after does. So go through. I think I'll go through like these first four here, and then I'll show like how I go over or pass over it to get a little more sophisticated.
You like the waistcoat? But how about the shoes?
They're yellow.
Okay. So you got his next line, where he seems to be interested in getting approval from her on his fancy new clothes. So I think I've got a preset I like that would work there. I'll show y'all. So I've got this one, which I've named Nervous Smile. Although one thing about this one, I'm very fond of this preset that I've made because it's kind of funny. But I don't want to overuse it because it's so distinctive. But I'm not too concerned about it here. But I think that works. You might also notice the characters look a little different here than they do in scene view, and that's mainly due to the FOV, field of view. Fortunately, in the newer versions of Unity, you can adjust the FOV. So the FOV of the camera is 40, and FOV of scene view is generally 90, because it feels like weird and clunky to like. Well, the smaller the field of view is, the more flattened everything is. So it's kind of awkward if you're like trying to work with the scene and you've got this low field of view. It's almost like dizzying to turn it around really quickly like that. But it's like that if you've ever taken a selfie and you felt like it didn't really look like you, it's like a field of view issue. And this is especially a problem with the Valentine-derived characters. With a high field of view, the faces look really, really narrow. Much more narrow than they look with the actual camera. Because when the field of view gets lower, like the jaw gets kind of flattened in, and the face looks wider. So that's something, particularly if you are modeling, that's important to be mindful of. Because I've kind of had a lot of problems over the last few years, because the original like Valentina and Valentine faces, I think, were done in orthographic mode by the artist, and they didn't really check how that would. Orthographic is like the flattest field of view you can have, basically. Like without checking how they would look in a different field of view, and that's something I've been kind of like wrestling with for like the 2.5 years since, because the faces really are kind of like unnaturally narrow once you get the field of view like to around 50 and above. But I did do some work on them like 4 or 5 months ago to try to widen the faces a bit without losing like the distinctive character of them, because I've been like staring at these characters for 2.5 years now, so if I change the faces too much, it looks really fucking weird to me. They don't look like themselves anymore. That's not a huge concern with the Cherry Orchard because this is a new thing, but I didn't want to like drastically change their faces too much, or I couldn't reuse all the expression presets that I made for Red Star. These are all weird concerns, yes. So anyway, nervous now, blah, blah, blah.
How about the shoes?
So she says they're yellow. That seems to be a way of like trying not to express disapproval, but actually kind of disapproving. So probably go for some sort of humorous look there. Like probably a brow raised skepticism of yellow. Not sure if I like your yellow shoes, but I'll be nice about it because I like you. So let's see, what might I have for that? Probably, yeah, I think that might be a good one. So we'll preview that. That's a bit too strong for her, but one thing I can control is the basically the strength of the blend, and basically blending between this preset and neutral. So I think that might work if I make that blend not quite so strong. It's too bad there's not really a good convenient way to stream 2 monitors without a bunch of empty space. You know, I think it'd be funnier if she wasn't smiling so much. Oh, actually, I actually did add this feature so that it wouldn't affect the mouth. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, that'll do it. Okay. But now she's not got anything in between, so before I go in to do anything too crazy, we'll just close the gaps of these. Oh yeah, thanks for joining. And we can actually put in, well, it's not automatic. I had to program it to do this. Unity's timeline is a weird thing to try to work with. I'm trying not to lean on it too heavily because it's a bit unpredictable. But I can put in a blend between the 2 states just by dragging the clip over like this. So let's see how our basic laying down of the foundation of this works.
I've got to go off to Kharkov on the 5 o'clock train. I'm so sorry. I really wish I could stay and catch up. Well, you're looking great as always.
Is that really you, Hermes?
You like the waistcoat? But how about the shoes?
They're yellow.
So, like, that's okay, but I think we definitely need some more variety, especially in this long one, and then we need a blend in here, and then I actually didn't like this one on her because the cheeks were puffed out a bit too much, because I believe when I made that preset for Red Star, it was a scene where like Valentina was kind of like indignant and being bitchy about something, so it made sense in that context, but it doesn't really make sense here. So I'll probably make a copy of that and then tweak the copy. Excuse me. You may have noticed the transition here. Notice how it overshoots on the brows. That's none of this is anything Unity automatically does. I had to tell it how to do that blend. The default blend for my expression clips is that overshoot blend ease I was discussing earlier. Because that's, well, I believe that ease, if you look it up, like you could find like CSS easing cheat sheet. It's called Outback, which is kind of funny, you know, sort of like welcome to the Outback Steakhouse, you know. But that bounce to me it's usually my favorite for swapping between expressions. So I don't quite like this one on her. Actually, that might work. That might work. I might want to make that a little weaker. I don't want her to be too caricatured, but I think that'll work.
Is that really you, Hermes?
I think she could go.
Is that really you, Hermes?
It's a little too smug, but actually, I think I've got one that might work. Let's see. Yeah, that'll... Wait, I'm already using that one. That's the next one. Maybe... Yeah, that'll work. It's a bit surprised. I know I want a brow-raised expression on that one. And you can see, like, part of this does come down to my own familiarity with the presets that I have.
Voice?
Is that really...
So, that, you can see it's sudden. We don't want it to be very sudden like that. So it's like, do I want to... What do I want to put in front of that? Now, if I don't actually have a preset I want to use, like I just want to go from neutral, specify like the ease in, and then it'll use this curve to go from neutral to that expression, in which case I'd probably want to drag that out.
Been great as always.
There, yeah, you can see how that goes. I'm not terribly in love with that, but that'll work for now. Notably, so their lip flap is, again, not an automatic thing. That's another system of mine, but very handy for previewing because I took like, a week to get that to work in edit mode because a lot of these things really are like meant to be done at runtime. But if you try to do the expression presets without previewing them alongside the lip flap, you can often find at runtime that they don't actually look good together because the mouth flapping like distorts the face too much, especially if it's a very extreme expression that already kind of distorts the... When I say distort, I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean like changes it from the neutral. It can get a little too crazy. Oh, someday I'll have to talk about how I do the lip flap because it's based on the amplitude of the audio. Okay, so this actually has a few different parts to it. So he's like, oh no, I have to go. Really wish I could stay up. You look great. So there's like 3 different like emotional phases of this. So it's kind of funny how this is sort of tied into what was being discussed the other day about directing and picking takes. So we just have to consider each part, and like I was discussing the other day, like think about why is he saying each thing, like what motivates him to say each thing, because we have to approach any script, especially when you don't write, you have to approach it in good faith and say like, well, assuming that this is well written and this is Chekhov, so I know it's well written, but like even if I was working on, I don't know, some project I didn't quite have faith in or whatever, it's like, okay, we have to approach it from the point of view that it is well written. So there is a reason for everybody to be saying everything. What is the reason? What is compelling them to say this? So this is a character, he's throughout the play always like checking his watch and being worried about the time. Sort of a comic running thing. I guess I wouldn't call it a running gag because it's not exactly a gag, but it's a character trait. So he's worried about the train and then kind of getting very apologetic because he's sort of nervous because he wants to impress her. And then kind of, I get the impression he's sort of nervously being like, oh, well, you're looking great because he wants her to approve of his new clothes. So let's see. So maybe looking for an expression where he's maybe kind of surprised or worried. I know I definitely want like a brows raised kind of expression. It's fun is if I can't find one, then I can show you all how I come up with these. Yeah, that'll probably work. Whoops. Yeah, I'll do that. We haven't even gotten how I do the head look and the eye look either. That'll probably be a different stream. So let's see.
I've
Because next, another big thing that really determines how the final feel is the duration and ease for the different like transitions between the expressions, and having to be a bit clever to make up for the fact that it's not keyframed.
I've got to.
So I think I want him to be kind of like sad, disappointed that he has to leave so soon a bit later, and that transition has to be a little snappier. So you have to think if you could like, shoot, and then, imagining he's looking at his watch and then he has to look at her. Like how that would happen, because he wouldn't like look at his watch and then be like, oh shoot, I have to go. Like it would be sudden. He would snap back because you would be like looking at his watch and being like, and then suddenly remembering, oh, I'm talking to another person. And whenever I do things like this, I do often like I never like look in the mirror, like look in a camera, but I do often like sit at my desk and be like, what would I be doing if I was? I often make really weird faces, and I can feel it later because I'm not actually looking at the faces I'm making. But if I'm like in it, particularly if I'm making one of these presets or animating a character in Blender, I end up making a lot of weird faces without trying to. I have to catch the train. I think I want him to be a little more apologetic. So
I've got to go off to.
I think I will go for a more contrite expression when he says, "I'm so sorry." And this is why I'm doing this whole roundabout thing where I'm doing it with the Unity audio that I'm later going to replace with the Fmod audio, because being able to like see the waveform makes this go so much faster.
Train. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. That's when I want this one. And that needs to be like probably a quarter-second transition. That's generally like the happy point for a lot of quick transitions. Like it can't be instant, but it's got to be pretty snappy. So let's see how I like that.
I've got to go off to Kharkov on the 5 o'clock train. I'm so sorry.
I actually think it ought to be longer because that was a little too snappy. In fact, I may need to change the ease because I think the kind of outback ease looked a little too cartoony there.
I'm so sorry. I really.
Well, it works a bit better if it's a little longer of a transition.
Clock train. I'm so sorry. I've got to go off to
I think I'm going to push that out. Oops.
I've got to go off to Kharkov.
It's a little too snappy.
I've got to go off to Kharkov.
I don't like that ease, but I'll deal with that later because like you could spend hours just like fussing over a single ease. And the way I try to do it is like, okay, we did our first pass where we got the basics, and now I'm kind of like doing a second pass where I'm like at least trying to hit every specific individual expression that I want, and then I'll like fuss with the actual transitions between them later, because I think the most important thing is like having as much content in terms of duration as possible, like for end to end, rather than like the vertical slice. Because like if suddenly you run out of time, you have to ship as fast as possible, it's better to have like a complete thing that maybe is shitty than like one thing where like a quarter of it's fantastic and then 3/4 of it is just like not done. You know how it is. It's like jams. I really wish I could stay in to catch up. And then he's like, oh, you look great. So I think he should kind of get back into sort of nervous, hey, but you look great. Like, I'm sorry, but you look great. I actually think if I don't go for like I have that really distinctive, like, nervous smile one. I don't really want to use that yet because it's so distinctive. I think I've got another one that I can use. And if I can't, I'll make a new one. I think I want to get one where he's kind of like got his brows raised. Actually, I think I've got Joanna type 1 that I might want to use. Sometimes I do like put the Joanna type 1s on the Valentine derived characters and vice versa, but they have like kind of unpredictable results. They tend not to look like the thumbnail. But I think that's a little too much. That's a lot of yeah. You can see like why I've got these separated into like Joanna type and Valentine types, because that's like a totally different. That's funny, but not quite what I want here. I might not be able to use these. Yeah, let's return to that some other time. I think I might even use that one because I mainly just want like a brows raised expression, and I can always fuss over it later. Just basic pass. When do I want that?
Staring catch up.
Oh yeah, when he's kind of like stammering. You look great. Let's see how I like that.
Well, you're looking great as always.
I think, man, I'll just toss it in for now, and then I'll probably like just tweak it later. I think this is really, oh, wrong one. That's like a little too contrite. So I might just have to make a new one. In fact, yeah, I'll do that now. Because what do I want here? I want him to be like kind of nervous, but not like guilty nervous. Don't I have one before I... Well, that might work for now.
You're looking...
Yeah, that works, that works. And I actually think I want... So the next part is like his... I'm going to have him go into that like kind of nervously contrite smile. I think he'd probably switch that expression in the middle of her line.
Is that really you?
Because that would be when he's hearing it and being like, oh, she's noticed I've got fancy new clothes.
Her me?
And so I think it makes sense if his expression changes in the middle of her line, because he's like waiting for his chance to be like, yeah, you noticed. So let's see how that looks.
Is that really you, Hermes?
Although I feel like I want something else. Like maybe he's got that nervous smile and then he actually like switches to like a more earnest smile. And maybe like back to the nervous smile. Because I feel like rhythmically, it's hard to describe. Like rhythmically, I think we need something else happening there. I think probably when he stops stammering. And then probably back to nervous smile. Probably when he finishes his statement. So let's see how that works.
You like the waistcoat? But how about the shoes?
So I don't like the little spring there is a little too silly. So maybe if we make that longer. Of course, I could always just change the ease, but I'm being lazy.
You like the waistcoat? But how about the shoes?
They're yellow.
Yeah, that works. Excuse me. So anyway, so we've got that pass in. Let's see how that all works together.
I've got to go off to Kharkov on the 5 o'clock train. I'm so sorry. I really wish I could stay and catch up. Well, you're looking great as always.
Is that really you, Hermes?
You like the waistcoat? But how about the shoes?
So the bit of that outback springiness is, I'm not quite happy with it, but I think I'm going to put off tweaking it for a bit longer because I didn't like, something felt like not quite responding to the line around here.
On the 5 o'clock train. I'm so sorry. I really wish I could stay and catch up. Well,
yeah, when he says like, you're looking great as always, that expression didn't quite seem true to that moment. Hi! Good to see you, Eon S. If I know you better under a different handle, please tell me what that is, because I don't recognize that handle. But I'm happy to see you. Anyway, so sort of
Looking
like
great as always.
nervous smile, I think works for the latter half. But I think he has like sort of a reaction here that needs a different expression.
Really wish I could stay and catch up.
I'm so
Sorry.
The audio scrubbing is always funny. Really wish I could stay and catch up. Just almost imagine, like, when he says, you know, you're looking great as always, sort of a almost an apologetic, like, don't hurt me. Well, thanks for joining us. All right, so he needs.
5 o'clock train.
I'm sorry. I really wish I could.
What does he need? There's some. It's like it's hard because it's like before I can even look for an expression, I have to think like, what expression does work there? I sense like for rhythm, he needs something else there. I think he needs to like have an even more extreme unhappy expression. Well, if I really can't think of it, I can start tweaking the blend shapes themselves. But you know, even then, you have to have some idea of where you're going. If you don't know where you're going, how are you going to get there? I think he needs like an even more extreme, like wide-eyed, sad expression. So I've mentioned a bunch of times, like, oh, needs brows up or needs whatever. When I actually think about these expressions, I don't even think about it in terms of like the brows alone, but obviously, like these are just like mesh deformations that I've made in Blender, but you have to think about them as if they were muscle groups. So kind of one of the biggest determining factors of how an expression is parsed is not even the mouth that's like you can't even think of things as like moving up and down. You have to think of them as like squishing or stretching out, really, is a better way to think of it. So when I think of a wide-eyed expression, I'm really thinking more about like, I think I need like the eyes to get squished up. Because actually, like one of the most important things is kind of subtle for like making something get parsed a certain way is like if the corners of the eyes get squished. So looking, I have in mind like something that does that sort of muscle contraction in a way that communicates that this is a sort of high energy, I'd almost call it a fear response, rather than some sort of more internal contemplative response, which is important if you're using like negative expressions like, you know, sadness or whatever. Because I think it's really important to communicate visually if the sadness is like a more internal, reflective sadness, or just sort of a, negative things are happening around me, And in this case, it's the latter. because the negative emotion would be coming from like embarrassment and not like some sort of deep angst. Got one call. Once again, I forgot. Well,
Yeah, I really wish I could.
Train catch up.
I think he needs like a surprised expression actually. So let's see how that looks. This is like probably not the idea. Like, oh, I'm just gonna try it out and see how it looks without having any idea.
Well,
You're
Looking great as
always
Oh, that kind of works. I'm not crazy about the. Yeah. It's like there's so many different grades of these things. I'm not crazy about the ease, but let's see how that works.
stay and catch up. Well, you're looking great as always.
Yeah, I don't like the Outback ease, but I think that kind of like, oh, surprise, said.
Well,
you're looking great as always.
Yeah, that word I like that.
Well, you're
I think I just need to push that out a bit to when he says it. In fact, I think the transition shouldn't even happen until after he says that, because it's sort of well is like an emotional, like the word well there doesn't really communicate anything, so it's like I have to produce like a sound, so it should be synced with the expression. It's not, something this character was like planning to say anyway.
Well, you're looking great as always.
I think I do think the overshoot works there, but I don't like
You're
the
looking great.
overshoot there. So this is, once again, none of this is native Unity stuff. This is us. This is stuff that I have made for this. So I have made it so that I will mathematically generate an easing curve based on one of these options. I think it might have, yeah, there we go. You see the ease changed when the inspector repainted itself. So let's see how that looks.
You're looking great as always.
So you'll see it didn't overshoot that time because I changed the ease. Because as I mentioned, like I usually prefer it to overshoot, but in that case it was just a little too cartoony.
Well, you're looking great as always.
Yeah, I like that better. So let's see all that together again.
I've got to go off to Kharkov on the 5 o'clock train. I'm so sorry. I really wish I could stay and catch up. Well, you're looking great as always.
Is that really you, Hermes?
You know what? I want to have his eyebrows go up there when she says his name. So let's push that out.
Is that really you, Hermes?
And once again, I'm not crazy about the Outback on that one. I'm actually just going to adjust the curve a bit. Let's see how that looks.
Hermes?
Yeah, that looks a little better for that one.
Is that really you, Hermes?
Because it makes it a little more gentle, which I think I want there, but I think I want it to be shorter. So it should be done by the time she's done saying his name.
Really you, Hermes?
You like them?
I think that's cute. I'm wondering if I want to have something. Well, this is like, how much detail do I really want to put in? Because I really want to like finish all of this face animation by the end of the month. Because like you could spend forever on any project, and I really can't afford, like literally in terms of money and time, I cannot afford to keep working on this like past September. I really need to kick this out the door because this is a side project. It's not my main project, and I'm going to run out of money. I need to have a bit more of a passive income coming in, or I'm fucked. But anyway, what the fuck was I talking about? Like I hear that like cute like stammer that the actor put in, and I'm like, oh yeah, I wanna like have some reaction to that, but it's like I cannot, like I actually have a schedule of like tasks and things, and if I really like put in that much time and attention on every line, I'm not gonna get all this animation done by the deadline I've set for myself. So that's good enough for now.
You like the waistcoat? But how about the shoes?
They're yellow.
Okay, yeah, I think that looks. In fact, let's look at the whole thing again because I just like interrupted it.
I've got to go off to Kharkov on the 5 o'clock train. I'm so sorry. I really wish I could stay and catch up. Well, you're looking great as always.
Is that really you, Hermes?
You like the waistcoat? But how about the shoes?
They're yellow.
Yeah, I think that works. I mean, because well, the nice thing about doing a video game is like people have low expectations. Because I was reflecting like if this was supposed to be like a short film, like a short animated film, this looks like fucking dog shit. This looks fucking terrible, but it's not a film; it's a game, and like if it's an indie game, people kind of expect it to look kind of like crappy. So this is like, you know, this is pretty good for an indie game. This animation is pretty good for an indie game. So I'm already ahead of the curve there. But yeah, so I looked at a subtitle system that was actually like a bit more like real closed captioning in terms of duration of the subtitles and their behavior. It was like I think a bit more accessible, to be honest. But I changed it to what I was doing now, which is much more visual novel-y, because I realized I want to have a bunch of like buttons and shit on the screen and HUD things to remind people at all times that it is a game and not a film. Because the moment people start thinking of this project as a film, I'm fucked. Because it looks like a fucking dog shit film. But it looks like a really great video game, don't you think? I have no training as an animator either, so it's like this is just me doing what I think looks good. It'd be such a dog shit film. It'd be embarrassing. It'd be shameful to attach my name to it, but it's a great looking video game. That's my brand. So another thing that'll help, because this is all very like wooden, because it's like standing and talking to each other, is that once I put in some more body animation, that really helps the face animation seem more natural for whatever reason. So that'll also help this seem a bit less stiff and wooden. But the body animation is always much more annoying and takes longer, so I do that later. And like if worse comes to worse, if I really start like running out of time and money, like it's better if I ship it with them just like standing there staring at each other, but with the face animations looking fine, than if like their bodies are moving how they should, but their faces are like stone. Well, that's my opinion anyway. Yeah. So listen, I got like four lines done. Yeah. I think I've been streaming an hour. I think I'm gonna call it quits on the stream because I've been rambling a lot and I don't want to hold. What? Yeah. But that's how I've been doing this. So, like the remaining step here, what remains to be done for these lines, aside from like the body, like face animation wise, what remains to be done is I want to like, you know, tweak the transitions a little more. I might change the easing curve on some of them. But past that, then it's just like, at some point I'm going to be replacing all these Unity audio clips, or basically I'll be removing them, and then I'll be like looking at the timing and tying it in with Fmod. But that'll be done later, because the most important thing now is like to be able to see it, to hash out the rough. But anyhow, I think, yeah, I'll call it quits for now, but thanks y'all for joining. It's been fun, and maybe I'll put it on later, but now I'm just gonna like do more of the same probably, but without an audience so I can work faster. So, later.